love the idea that Sarah Palin is angry that she lost her election in Alaska. I mean, this is the first time I was reading like a Democrat won a statewide like race in Alaska in like something like the past, like I don't remember exactly, like 40 or 50 years. It's been a long time. And like the cherry on top is that they really the person who helped make it possible was Sarah Palin. She is that toxic to even the people of Alaska who remember, I guess, that she quit her job as governor early to partake in a reality TV show career.
Sarah Palin's Alaska on TLC.
Right. That I guess they were like, yeah, we'll pass on Palin. But she's complaining now about the system of voting that they rolled out in Alaska. And this was a race where this system was in place. And that's ranked choice voting. And this is something that we do here in New York now. Started with just started recently with the previous mayoral race. And funny enough, Democrat Eric Adams was angry about the system as well, because he thought it was going to cost him the election, even though he ended up winning anyway. On the flip side here, we have Sarah Palin complaining because she lost and she's blaming ranked choice voting. I got a little spoiler alert here for you, but let's not get to that first. Let's play the clip and then we'll discuss the ultimate swerve after. I don't want to spoil anything. Go ahead, play this clip, Bradley.
Well, you called it, Steve, when you explained what this newfangled cockamamie system called ranked choice voting is all about, when it doesn't matter if you perhaps are the most popular or most qualified candidate. No, you can get a whole lot of votes, Steve, but if you don't get enough second or third rankings from voters who choose another candidate, then you're eliminated, or then you get second place and you don't win. And it's complicated. You explained it best. President Trump explained it very well in a rally that he had up here, warning Alaskans that this newfangled experiment with ranked choice voting will split votes. It will allow liberals to skip on in, which is exactly what's happened thus far. And it's a very, very potentially fraught with fraud even system.
I just want to say,
go ahead.
Just quickly, speaking of fraud, Steve Bannon has surrendered himself to authorities in the New York court for, defrauding donors who donated to his wall for the U.S.-Mexico border. So if anyone is familiar with, duping, perhaps fraud, one might say, I think Steve Bannon is the person to go to.
Right. Yes. It's interesting that she's saying this on Bannon's show. I mean, really, I guess the perfect audience, because they love any idea of there being election fraud or a system in place that's harder for Republicans or whatever. But here's the thing. First of all, ranked choice voting in general, I love the idea of basically this is what it means. If your first choice doesn't get a lot of votes, guess what? Your vote, your opinion on who should win the race doesn't get tossed out in the garbage. You get to pick, if this person doesn't win, you know what? This would be my second choice, and I'd be quite happy with this person too. It gives people the opportunity to be able to vote exactly for who they want to, knowing that in a scenario where their first choice doesn't get to the next round because they didn't get enough votes, their opinion no longer matters. They get to vote who they would see, as the second pick. And in Alaska, it seems like a lot of people who voted for the other Republicans in the race decided that, hey, you know what? Sarah Palin's not my second choice, not my third choice, not my fourth choice, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They would rather have seen the Democrat win than Sarah Palin. But even besides that, even if we remove ranked choice, even if you're someone who goes, I still don't like that idea, you should pick your one person, and when they don't get enough votes, that's it, you don't get a second choice. Even if that's your thought process, ranked choice voting isn't the reason Sarah Palin lost either. She wasn't first in the race when all the first round votes were taken. The Democrat was still first. Sarah Palin was never in a position of winning, even from round one, when only the votes of people's first choice mattered and were counted. So she's just, first of all, trying to find anyone to blame but herself. Again, not surprising, the party of Trump, where again, not ranked choice voting, but Trump lost the election to Biden, and they're still whining and complaining about it and trying to find out ways to trying to discover ways to overturn the election nearly 2 years later now.
Yeah, it's very funny that she has to say it's so complicated because someone who's the most popular, and then she corrects herself and says competent because she can't say popular, because what Binder said is right. It's only complicated if you have to avoid the fact that a whole bunch of people who voted for the other Republican didn't want her as their second choice and wanted a Democrat more than her. That's why you lost, because you are supremely unpopular. And I don't understand why like all these different outlets like allow her to like come on their platform and act like this isn't the case. Like, she's a loser. Cut bait.
Well, I would say doing it, yeah, but yeah, I agree with you. Any other outlet she goes on for sure. But here's the thing too, like ranked choice voting also changes the whole dynamic of who runs in a race. Like, if I was going to run in a ranked choice voting system and I was worried that I could possibly siphon off votes, first of all, I don't have to worry about that in a ranked choice voting system. Anyone could run and not worry about being a spoiler, because you could just tell people, your supporters, listen, vote for me. Hopefully I win, but if I don't, vote for this person as your second choice. They're my next pick if I don't win. So the idea that like it would still be that makeup, that electoral makeup in terms of like who's running, we also don't know. Maybe the other Republicans who ran would have been like, I'm not going to run because I prefer my votes don't take from the Democrat who I prefer over Palin. Or even maybe my votes don't take from Palin because I prefer her over the Democrat. And maybe that person's supporters would have voted for the Democrat in their first choice too. Like, it changes the whole dynamic of who runs too. So you can't even say what she's saying, because the fact of the matter is it's just all wrong across the board. She lost in every single way imaginable. She could complain, I guess, if she was coming in first during those first rounds, and then after second or third round or fourth round, etc., votes were counted, she got bumped to second. But that didn't happen.
I think this is more of an attack on the idea of ranked choice voting. And, I think it's just clear that certain politicians in our country, usually Republicans, benefit from how anti-democratic our voting system actually is. And a move towards ranked choice voting would have an oversized impact on Republicans not being elected to certain positions, I think, is their calculation. That's probably true. But it's just, it's the nature of how unpopular they actually are. Sarah Palin is, I think, just a useful, for some people, and recognizable voice to be the face of this current wave of anti-democratic sentiment. Whether or not you want Sarah Palin to win, I think, is less important than whether or not you are willing to pretend that ranked choice voting is a threat to democracy versus just a threat to the Republican Party's like stranglehold on democracy, or even just the Democratic Party's stranglehold on their own like voting base.